What is going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys for coming back, and today we're going to be talking about the Wormgod Caress. This got a nice little change in Season of the Wish here, with its stacking damage for melees being on a meter now. So instead of just going straight from 1 to 2 to 3, it'll go just like that, but on a bar on the left hand side of your screen. That'll decay over time, so you have a little bit longer in each of those categories. Instead of once it runs out, it wouldn't just go straight down to 0. So this does feel way better to me, using it on Solar Titan, making it super good for that solar synergy, scorching, igniting targets everywhere, pairing it with the Dragon's Breath exotic for a little bit of extra DPS as well. So right here is the Burning Fists, the exotic perk on this bad boy. Defeating a target with a melee or a finisher grants escalating melee damage with decays over time. Higher level Burning Fist grants increased weapon damage as well, so that as well helps with the DPS side of this, and it just feels better overall than the pure melee damage that we had before. Like I said, if it was at ×5, which is the max, it would just go down to 0 if it ran out. Now we decay over time, which is super nice, especially on our Bonk Hammer Titan like we have right here. Now, for mods on this build, we are going to be using Special Ammo Finder, Kinetic Siphon, as well as Harmonic Siphon. You will see why with our weapons. Now, Heavy-Handed Impact Induction, Focusing Strike, so we can get our class ability back, as well as our grenade when we get those powered melee hits, as well as Orbs of Power. Now, we're going to be using the Emergency Reinforcement, which gives us that little extra damage reduction when our shield is broken. This will help us in that endgame content, staying alive with stasis resistance. This was just what I was going into. Lots of getting hit by those stasis grenades and such. You can throw on whatever you want depending on that content. Now we got Absolution as well as Orbs of Restoration, so we can get our abilities back a little bit better. This grants to our lowest ability energy. This gives it to us just a little bit for all of them. Now we're going to have a Reaper with double bomber right here, so we can get our grenade back a little bit faster. You can see we got that 100 resilience, 100 discipline on this build to spread that scorch and really cause that solar synergy ignitions of this build. Now for weapons, we are mainly using the Aishira's Dejection right here with Reconstruction Incandescent as well as Dragon's Breath, because they both can cause those ignitions, have some pretty crazy solar synergy, plus this is super good at that long-term overall DPS that's sustained when you're moving plates, whatever it may be. In your kinetic slot, I was using the Fire Fright right here. You could also use a sidearm, anything like that you like in your kinetic slot, but Fire Fright just felt right to me. Now for the Queen's Foil Sensor, the artifact this season, which is gnarly for that solar synergy, letting us have some pretty insane damage. Now for us, we're going to be using Kindling Trigger as well as Flint Striker, so solar rapid precision hits, as well as those final blows grant us Radiant, as well as Radiant causes Scorch to unscorch combatants with those solar weapons. Nice little synergy. Torch right here, while we're Radiant, we also deal increased damage to combatants affected by Strand or Stasis. Hopefully someone on your team using a Cold Clip, something like that, on a fusion rifle. Stasis getting that debuff and slow and freeze. And then we got the Heart of the Flame, casting our super nearby allies that are Radiant. We increase the damage of our super for each ally, so in those raids, our hammer is going to be doing a nice little juicy DPS, even in dungeons when you got those two guardians next to you, also some juicy DPS. On top of that right here, we got our last two, Revitalizing Blast and Ray of Precision. Solo operative just for that solo content, but Rays of Precision, well, Radiant solar weapon final blows cause that ignition, so even more of that solar synergy, with champions and bosses being weakened for a short period of time when we cause damage with our solar ability. Counts for our grenade as well as our super or our throwing hammer. Now right here, we move on to the meat and potatoes of the build with the Sunbreaker Super, as well as our abilities, aspects, and fragments using Hammer of Soul, so we can kill all of those enemies in our region with the solar ignitions and that solar synergy. Plus, this just feels better for pairing with these aspects, in my opinion. Now, towering barricade, strafe lift, totally up to you, whatever you want to use. I personally like throwing hammer with this because even with its little bit of nerf, you can still punch some enemies. Plus, the Wormgod Caress gives us that melee damage increase on finishers as well, so throwing hammer is definitely the best. Personally, I really love the thermite grenade, especially for spreading scorch around, but again, totally up to you, whichever grenade you want. This is definitely just my favorite. Now for aspects, we got Roaring Flame, Soul Invictus. So Soul Invictus, solar ability final blows, Hammer of Soul impacts, one of the reasons why we're using Hammer of Souls, and defeating scorched targets creates sunspots, hence why everything on this build is attempting to create scorch via our grenade, our weapons, as well as those artifact mods. All of those sunspots, they give us a faster regen abilities for our abilities, as well as our super drains more slowly, so you can throw some hammers at your feet standing and then just go to town with hammers, and it'll definitely last a lot longer. Sunspots apply scorch and deal damage to targets, so right there, easy peasy lemon squeezy, allows us to create even more of that scorch and solar synergy of this build. Plus we get restoration. On top of that, Roaring Flames allows our solar abilities to stack to give more damage, allowing that to ×3, so it just adds to the Wormgod Caress damage, our hammers damage, as well as our thermite grenade. Last but certainly not least, for our fragments, we're on Ashes right here for that extra little bit of scorch on targets. Eruption ignitions have an increased area effect, just spreading the solar scorch of this build even more. With Ember of Searing, defeating scorched targets grants melee energy as well as fire sprites. We love fire sprites, very good for that grenade energy as well. And finally, Ember of Torches, becoming radiant with the hammer right here, all the times that we get those powered melee attacks against combatants. So this build, very, very nice with the changes to Wormgod Caress. Definitely feels way better with that decaying time bar instead of just straight going to 0 after ×5. It allows you to do a lot more damage for sure. The throwing hammer, pairing it with these sunspots and all the scorch ignitions that we have this season with that very juicy artifact mods for the solar synergy, just makes it even better. So hopefully y'all can try out this build. I definitely still think Synthoceps is better, but this got a nice little change and it feels way better than it did before. Way more viable in that end game content, like I said. So hopefully y'all got a good roll in your vault. Break it out if you want and get to slapping on this Solar Titan build. Thank you guys again. Truly appreciate all y'all. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.